All right, what's going on, everyone? So already a pretty hectic start to the day as the President of the United States has said he is prepared to kill an entire civilization in the next few hours. You heard that right, and that's not an exaggeration. That's not taken out of context. Word for word, President Trump, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." And we are going to read this entire thing because it's important. I'm seeing too many folks sane wash this and kind of summarize it to mean something else that the president didn't say. There's nothing sane about what our president has said in the last 48, 72 hours. So we're going to go through it word for word because it's important to see what he's actually saying. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight, one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. There is no justification for the President of the United States to make a statement like that. Full stop. There's none. Can't what about and justify it away with anyone else. We're better than that. That's not how we operate on the world stage. That's not how our military operates on a world stage. What I've seen people say is, well, first off, that's not what he meant. What he meant was actually, well, too bad. That's what he said. He could have said the IRGC. He could have said the Islamic regime. There's a number of different things he could have said, but he went with an entire civilization. That includes the civilians. Like, let's stop playing games here, all right? If we saw this from any other leader around the world, especially one from a nuclear-armed country, we would criticize it, and we would say, that is absurd. You can't do this. It's morally, legally, ethically wrong. And we would say, that looks an awful lot like a call for genocide. You know, the thing that genocide scholars and legal experts are always, it's the intent that they always have a hard time with in cases like that. This is what they would call intent. When the president of a country says, hey, our military operation that is set to commence in the next 12 hours will lead to the death of an entire civilization. It's not okay. All right. I know that terrorist organizations call on death to America, death to Israel, and death to any other number of groups and people around the world. That's wrong. And, you know, personal opinion, I tend to hold the United States and our elected leaders in a bit higher regard, to higher standards than terrorist organizations around the world. If we say that the IRGC says this, or North Korea will say this, or Russia threatens nuclear weapons, cool, we're better than that. And when North Korea or the IRGC, or especially Russia, calls out nuclear threats and says they're getting ready to do that, we do, even on this channel, mock them and say that is ridiculous. That is an irresponsible use for the power that you have. How dare you? And here we are, the United States wasting no time saying that an entire civilization will die tonight. I understand that any criticism of President Trump and the way he phrases things is presented as TDS, right? And Trump can do no right. Let's just acknowledge that this isn't normal. The last couple days are off the rails. Do with that what you will. Now, Iran, understandably so, has called off all communications with the United States following this threat, as reported by Reuters just a few minutes ago. And the timing here is important because on Easter Sunday, 2 days ago, President Trump said, quote, "Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah." None of that is normal. None of that is okay. None of that is acceptable. Pick whatever you want. We need people in the United States, responsible leaders, to step up and figure this out, sort through this. This is not how we operate. And even if someone is to say, yeah, well, it's just a negotiating tactic, then it's a bad one. It is a stain on the United States that on Easter morning we're putting out praise be to Allah. That's mocking religions around the world. It's mocking religions in the United States. It's mocking the American people. It's mocking the Iranian people. This is gross. So if it's a negotiating tactic, it's a bad one and has been for quite a while here. Now, following that threat on Sunday, the IRGC issued a response that we probably could have expected, where they said, until now, we have exercised great restraint for the sake of neighborliness in choosing targets for retaliation. But from now on, all of these considerations have been lifted. If the United States crosses red lines, our response will extend beyond the region. They've been threatening this for some time. We have seen the Iranian ability to hit other locations throughout the Gulf, softer targets, civilian targets is a good way to put this, if the United States and Israel expand the targeting of civilian infrastructure inside of Iran. So it should not be a shock that Iran has been consistent with that message. When the United States and Israel escalate inside of Iran, we will escalate inside the region. In fact, there's some indications that that is already starting in a couple different areas. In fact, the foreign minister of Qatar just earlier today said, quote, "We are close to the point where the situation in the region could spiral out of control." All right, so we're hearing that from multiple different directions now. And the key player in all of this, the United States, is saying that our solution is to wipe a civilization off the map. Keep that in mind. That is one of the, if not the key player in all of this. Now, in some ways, this expansion of the targeting campaign has already started with some strikes by the United States and Israel in recent days. We also have a 10-point peace plan from Iran that was just presented yesterday that we're going to run through here in a moment. But first, a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Proton Mail. So I feel like when we first got online, it was just a blank slate. We made an account, picked a username, StuCMA, that was me, over on AOL Instant Messenger. Shout out to the high school, Culver Military Academy. But we didn't even think twice that somebody might be tracking us. But now it's a little bit different. Kids today are basically born into a system where their data starts getting collected right away, before they even know what an email address is, which is why I partnered with today's sponsor, Proton Mail. Every app, every login, every random sign up to continue moment, it all adds up over time into a profile that they never chose to create. And honestly, we didn't really know what we were doing either. If you think back to when we made those email accounts and you just clicked agree and moved on, and now look at your inbox. It's full of spam, ads, and years of data floating around somewhere being used by someone. That was the norm for us, but it doesn't have to be like that for our kids. Now, with Proton Mail, you can reserve your child's email address right now for just $1. It's completely private, no ads, no tracking, no profile. And it's basically giving them a clean start online, something they actually have control over from day one. So you can set up your child's account now or grab a free one for yourself using the link in the pinned comment and description below, proton.me/Preston Stewart. And thank you so much to Proton Mail for sponsoring today's video. So it's worth noting that strikes have not stopped in Iran. There's no ceasefire in place, and strikes against dual-use infrastructure have also not stopped. And this brings up the conversation of, are bridges viable targets? Are electrical facilities viable targets? All of that. Are rail lines viable targets? In fact, today we're seeing that, I can't tell exactly if it's Israel. I'm seeing some indications it's Israel, not certain. Either Israel or the United States is already going after rail lines and bridges inside of Iran, with Israel issuing a warning in Farsi to Iranian citizens to stay away from the railroads today if possible. Kind of giving you an idea of what's to come here in the coming hours. All of those different targets can be justified legally, ethically, and morally in the law of armed conflict. They can be, but not blanket. You can't say all of the rail lines. You can't say all of the roads. You can't say all of the electrical infrastructure. There's a proportionality aspect there, and that's one of the things you'll see people argue with as this strike campaign continues, is the nuance of what is and isn't a viable target. And a lot of it comes down to the proportionality, and then making sure that it is having a direct impact, and the focus is the military impact. That becomes harder when the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, talks about killing an entire civilization and talks about how we're going to wipe them, bomb them back to the Stone Age, and or you'll be living in hell. Right? That moves it away from clear military to maybe more civilian in that dual-use category. But in recent days, we have seen factories and universities hit. Iran responded by hitting the SABIC plants in Jubail, Saudi Arabia overnight. According to the AFP, this is home to one of the world's largest industrial cities where steel, gasoline, petrochemicals, lubricating oil, and chemical fertilizers are produced. So an expansion of this strike campaign. And earlier today, Jen Griffin of Fox News confirmed that the United States has begun carrying out strikes on Harg Island. So that is the island just off the Strait of Hormuz. The United States said they hit bunkers, radar stations, ammunition storage facilities, but loading docks were not intentionally targeted. Harg Island further north in the Persian Gulf, not in the Strait of Hormuz, but a bit further north. They say U.S. hit dozens of military targets on Harg Island overnight. And I should note, as we're hearing more about these strikes and the increase in the campaign today, we're seeing some pictures and videos come out from Iran of putting human shields up around civilian infrastructure. So there's a lot of pictures and videos of Iranians standing outside of, rail lines and on bridges and universities and factories. And I don't know that that's going to stop the United States and Israel from carrying out strikes. But that's you talk about how this is spiraling and how messy this is about to get. Again, the conversation in recent videos about total war, like that is the direction we're headed if some of these facilities continue to get hit. Now, and I should mention, when we're talking about the human shields in front of these facilities, we are just getting what is being presented from Iranian state media. So I can't tell you. We know there are a lot of regime supporters inside of Iran, okay? It's nowhere near 100%. It's also not 0%. So there are some. Not everybody in the country is forced at gunpoint to support the regime. There is some degree of support there even today. So are the people going out and surrounding these facilities supporters of the regime? Are they having to do so at threat of life or their family members' lives? I don't know, okay? But they're definitely Iranians. They all appear to be civilians, men, women, and children around some of these facilities. Now, Iran yesterday apparently submitted a 10-point peace proposal to Pakistan that made its way to the United States. The New York Times says Iranian state media said that the text of the proposal was rejecting a ceasefire and emphasized the necessity of a permanent end to the war in line with Iran's considerations. Now, as we move through this, I want you to think of what is reasonable and what is not, like what could be attainable in the near term. In a past video, we went over the 15-point plan presented by the United States and talked about the things that Iran was or was not likely to agree to on that. Now we've got the other side of that equation. So according to the New York Times, the 10-point plan here is 1, a commitment that Iran will not be attacked again. All American attacks or those of its allies on Iran will cease. 2, a declaration of a permanent end to the war, not just a temporary ceasefire. 3, an end to Israeli strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. 4, removal of all sanctions, American sanctions on Iran. 5, cessation of all fighting against Iran's allies in the region. 6, opening a safe passage in the Strait of Hormuz. 7, paying a payment of a fee for the passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Each ship will pay about $2 million to Iran. 8, the revenue from the fee will be shared with Oman. Rules will be established. 9, rules will be established for the safe passage of ships in the Strait of Hormuz. And 10, part of the revenue will be used to rehabilitate infrastructure damaged during the war. That still sounds to me like a maximalist list. What I don't see on that is the removal of U.S. bases from the region. So hard to tell at this point because we're getting this secondhand if that has actually fallen off from the list of Iranian demands or if that maybe didn't make it into the official list at baseline. But what they're asking for here is something that is hard to see the United States and Israel committing to. I don't know that Israel right now is getting ready to call off all strikes against Hezbollah. The U.S. easing all sanctions on Iran and handing over passage or ownership of the Strait of Hormuz. Like, there's no way to present that other than a failure. Like, if we go into this war and we come out of it with all sanctions removed from Iran, I mean, their list is not touching their missile program. It's not touching their proxies. It's not touching nuclear, right? So it's not addressing any of the things that we went to war for. So if we come out with this list, it's a clear defeat. Like, it's a clear failure by the United States. So it's hard to look at this, just as it's hard to look at the United States list, as anything other than the maximalist demands with the idea that maybe the two sides can come together and negotiate on something in the middle. However, as we reported just a few moments ago, it sounds like Iran has cut off all communications with the United States after President Trump's threat earlier today to eliminate their entire civilization. So, we've got about 11 hours until the deadline hits. We'll see. Based off of the publicly available information, I'm not positive that talks are even happening, let alone there's going to be some sort of ceasefire. So what we are probably going to see later today is either President Trump extending this, saying things are moving in the positive direction, so I'm giving them another 3, 5, 7 days because we've already seen that like 6 times, or we're going to see a significant bombardment campaign carried out throughout Iran that, if it's in line with what President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have been saying in recent days, is going to be unlike anything we've seen, at least in my lifetime. So, yeah, we'll keep track of this and see where it goes, but it's going to be a pretty hectic day, to say the least. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.